The moment I heard the blood-curdling screams, I knew two things for certain. First, that Meredith Whitman's HOA-sponsored beach party had finally spun out of control. Second, that my legal alligators were having a far more interesting day than I was. When I bought land out by Lake Briar, it was one of those hidden gems you stumble on by accident. Down a narrow gravel road, no signs, no gates, no cookie-cutter homes in sight. Just raw pine forest, rocky shores, and a lake that whispered peace every time the wind moved across it. It felt like mine before I even signed the deed. I built the cabin myself, timber by timber, nail by nail. Took me months and more stubbornness than skill, but when it stood there among the trees, it felt like it belonged. Back then, I didn't have a neighbor for half a mile. Deer wandered freely, herons drifted lazily overhead, and the only sound at night was the frogs and the wind. Lake Briar was no manicured resort. It had murky spots, rocky ledges, and it was deep enough to swallow a secret or two. But it was real. And perfect. Until the HOA came like a parade of khaki shorts and clipboard-wielding bureaucracy. One morning, I found a shiny new sign at the entrance road. Welcome to Briar Shores Community, a deed-restricted neighborhood. I stood there with coffee cooling in my hand, dumbfounded. I hadn't sold a thing. Turns out, some developer bought the neighboring tracts, bulldozed the old cabins, and built lakeside luxury villas. With them came an HO and Meredith. She was the kind of woman whose smile felt like a threat, always one voice note away from a Yelp review meltdown. Her HOE newsletters began showing up in my mailbox like glittery spam talking about community building and neighborhood pride. Then came the friendly invites to lakeside socials and potlucks held suspiciously close to the shore I owned. I ignored them, thought they'd burn themselves out trying to tame a place like this. But Meredith didn't see disinterest as a roadblock, she saw it as a challenge. The first party looked like a tailgate crash landing. Loudspeakers, folding tables, minivans jammed on the gravel road. I stood on the edge of my property with arms crossed, watching her approach in wedge heels, completely unfit for muddy ground. Isn't this amazing? She beamed. We're building community. You're on my land, I said, nodding to the weathered private property sign behind her. Oh, relax. She laughed. It's just a little lakeside fun. Besides, the water's public, right? I opened my mouth to correct her, but she was already barking orders to a volunteer army of suburban settlers. I let it slide. Once. Thought the heat and mosquitoes would drive them back to their vinyl palaces. But then came party number 2. Jet skis this time. Loud, reckless, scaring off every nesting bird and threatening fires with drunken fireworks. By the third event, they brought sand to build a beach. Bulldozed rocks older than our nation into some mock resort horror. That's when I marched into their HOA meeting wearing my best flannel and boots. Inside the model home they used as HQ, it smelled like artificial pine and desperation. Meredith sat center stage, flanked by her loyalists, middle-aged warriors armed with clipboards and sanctimonious smiles. When it was my turn, I laid it out cold. The land was mine. They were trespassing. Next time, there'd be lawyers. Meredith chuckled like I was her precocious nephew. Surely you don't mind a little community spirit, Mr. Granger. You're not paranoid, are you? I didn't answer. I just tipped my hat and walked out. Because what they didn't know, couldn't imagine, was that they'd picked a fight with someone who knew every inch of this lake and had been preparing for a different kind of party for years. It began with flyers. Neon pink nightmares stuffed in every mailbox, Briar Bash 2.0, jet skis, fireworks, beer garden. Hosted by Meredith Whitman. Vendors arrived midweek. Portable bars. Stages. Tiki torches. Someone zip-tied parking signs to my trees. When I questioned a vendor, he shrugged. Meredith cleared it. I called the county. The lake was under conservation zoning. They mumbled about ongoing investigations. I called the fire marshal. They told me Meredith self-certified. I knew what that meant. She filed bogus forms to cover her tail. I started digging. Turned out, Meredith had created an LLC, Event Solutions Unlimited, just months earlier. She hired her own company with HOA funds to organize the bash. Every vendor was a friend, cousin, or college roommate. She skimmed profits under the guise of community service. Even worse, residents who pushed back got hit with bogus violations. Non-compliant mailboxes. Grass an inch too tall. Meanwhile, those who stayed quiet were rewarded fresh driveways, new lawn gear, all donated by mysterious benefactors. But I had something better than vengeance. I had a sanctuary. 7 years ago, after a hurricane tore up the region, I filed to have my land registered as a wildlife sanctuary specifically for displaced and rehabilitated alligators. It came with protections, grants, and legal weight. Nobody cared back then. Until party night. Music roared. Glow sticks snapped. Jet skis screamed. Beer flowed like a frat house in July. And into the lake waded 2 drunk kids yelling, "Cannonball!" That's when the gators stirred. Not the big bulls. The younger ones faster, curious, and twitchy. A splash. A scream. Then another. Panic spread faster than fire. Meredith tried to restore order with a megaphone. No one listened. Sirens wailed. Deputies, wildlife officers, paramedics, even a news van descended like hawks. I stayed on my porch, sipping my coffee. Cameras rolled as shirtless partygoers ran screaming. Officers wrangled gators. Meredith tried explaining permits that didn't exist. Then they interviewed me. "You're the land steward?" an officer asked. "Registered under the Wetlands Conservation Act," I nodded. The next day, the hammer dropped. The state fined the HOA for violating protected sanctuary boundaries. The fire marshal added explosive storage violations. Then came the lawsuits. 6 partygoers filed for injuries. Meredith was named in every one. The HOA board fractured. The treasurer resigned. The secretary cried online. Even Meredith's bestie turned on her. And when they dared claim my sanctuary wasn't properly registered, I brought in my own lawyer, one who specialized in destroying overreaching HOAs. We filed our own suit for trespass, fraud, environmental damage, harassment. Meredith looked like a ghost when the court found her personally liable. 3 months later, the HOA collapsed. Their assets sold off. Their playground became a soup kitchen lot. The community center was now a bait shop. Meredith's home? Seized. Empty. Unsold. I reclaimed my land. And at the entrance, I put up a new sign. Gator Haven Preserve. No trespassing. Seriously. Sometimes newcomers drive up, read it, and wisely turn around. And if they don't, well, we still have teeth in the law, because respect out here isn't demanded. It's earned. Or else.